And Clarence Thomas is still in on the Supreme Court and begging to be impeached. I mean, it's just incredible. There are 4 cases coming up that Thomas says he's going to sit on, he's going to make decisions on, and each one of these cases is being sponsored in some way or has some influence or impact on his principal sugar daddy, Harlan Crow. It's just incredible. In a way, I think you could argue, and Joan McCarter does argue this over at Daily Kos, that Chief Justice John Roberts and Clarence Thomas caught a lucky break last week when Hamas attacked Israel, because the big story that was fixing to just brew all over the place was more corruption by Clarence Thomas and Leonard Leo and John Roberts. This is the Supreme Court. This is the story here. This is from the ProPublica reporting, and I quote, "On a chilly day in March 2017, about 6 weeks into Trump's presidency, Leonard Leo arranged for a select group to have a private audience with Justice Clarence Thomas at the Supreme Court." Notice this? This is a private group. These are millionaires and billionaires who are going to use the Supreme Court building. Back to the article. The attendees were a group of high net worth donors who had been organized by billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Singer to marshal huge resources toward electing Republicans and pushing conservative causes. That afternoon, the donors spoke with Thomas. The previously unreported meeting was described by a person familiar with it and corroborated by planning documents. That's Leonard Leo and Clarence Thomas using the U.S. Supreme Court building for a fundraising effort for Republicans, and for Republicans to bring legal challenges before the Supreme Court on voting rights, on abortion rights, on marriage equality, on the environment, on consumer protections. The 4 cases that involve Harlan Crow that are going to be before the Supreme Court in the next month or so are Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo, CFPB versus CFSA, Moore versus United States, and Atchison Hotels LLC versus Lawford. These are all cases in which big corporate money or millionaires and billionaires are fighting everything from environmental protections to the tax code to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And last week, Thomas continued his ongoing crusade against the right of people like me, the press, basically, to have First Amendment protections. He wants to change our libel laws. Right now, if you slander somebody, if you say something nasty about me, you go into some public venue and say, "Oh yeah, that Thom Hartmann, he fill in the blank. He does something terrible." I can't sue you because I'm a public figure. Similarly, if I say something about Clarence Thomas, because he's a public figure, he can't sue me. Well, he wants to change that. Clarence Thomas wants to change that. These snowflakes, these Republican snowflakes, they don't like the fact that they're getting called out. They don't like the fact that they're getting exposed. They don't like the fact that people are calling them names. I'm calling Clarence Thomas corrupt, for example, and his wife a traitor. They don't like that. And they want to be able to sue for libel. And Clarence Thomas is on this crusade to overturn the Times versus Sullivan case, which is the one where the Supreme Court back in the 60s, as I recall, ruled that, if somebody's a public figure, they don't have the basis for a libel claim unless they can prove a whole bunch of things. You have to prove that there was malicious intent and it was part of a conspiracy. And the conspiracy part isn't required, but you get my point. But it sure looks to me like Clarence Thomas is begging to be impeached. And the question in my mind is, why aren't Democrats impeaching him? It doesn't, this is something that I realize impeachments are supposed to originate in the House of Representatives, and there's no way the Republicans in the House of Representatives are going to do this, even if they had their act together enough to even elect a damn speaker.